Welcome to the Rusted Garden Homestead. This video is all about mid-season care, really fertilizing for your pepper plants. We'll go over some care routine too about removing leaves from the bottom. So there's a lot of information at mid-season to stop giving your pepper plants nitrogen, increase potassium and phosphorus. And that belief is that more phosphorus, more potassium helps with blooms and with more fruit, more production, which it does make sense in theory. And that may be true based on kind of what's going on in your garden with different levels of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. I found you don't really have to over worry about that. What you don't want to do, and these plants went into the ground in the beginning of May. We're approaching July right now, getting towards that mid-season. These are probably anywhere from 18 inches to almost 30 inches tall. They've had wonderful green growth. So in the beginning, I've given them more water-soluble fish emulsion with a 5% nitrogen level to really get the green growth going. You don't want to keep doing that at this point because you're going to get too much leaf growth. Sometimes the stems are a little bit weaker because they're growing so fast. The leaves are really lush. Sometimes they're a little bit more thin because they're just growing so fast from the nitrogen. That can invite in more pests and disease. Not necessarily going to happen. But what it does do is it creates a lot more leaf growth and sometimes not as much flower and fruit production growth, if that makes sense. And the reason I'm saying that is because these peppers look pretty good. Like it's hard to say that if I switched over to really a higher concentration of potassium and phosphorus that I would get more flowers and more fruit. I get tons off of here. So I don't want you to over worry about that. The main idea is more nitrogen in the beginning. At mid-season, cut that nitrogen level down and maybe give it some more phosphorus and potassium. And you don't have to over worry about the numbers. So what do? I try and keep things very simple. At this point, right in the base, if I had some compost, I would put in about 1 inch of compost right into the container top. I might also throw in a handful of organic granular fertilizer. You could do one, you could do the other, you could do the both. The organic granular, I use something just like this, anything that's on sale. It has N, P, and K represented. I don't worry about those numbers. And I just sprinkle it around the top. That was about 1/2 of a handful. The other thing that I do is I get in and at this point, and really over the last couple of weeks, I'm a little bit behind, is I just strip the leaves down, even a little bit of a stem, to really open up about 4 to 6 inches of space. And then you just open up a gap like this, 4 to 6 inches, let some air flow in, but more importantly, lets me get in here, just kind of inspect what's going on. I also take a look at the leaves. There's no really yellow spotting or any kind of problems with respect to disease. Right in there's a couple of holes, maybe some flea beetles, but nothing that's really worrying me. These plants are also really green. If they were yellow, they kind of looked like they were struggling for nitrogen, I would hit them again with my fish emulsion fertilizer. I just don't worry about mid-season, cut out the nitrogen, jack up the potassium and phosphorus. That's fine if you want to learn about that, but it's absolutely not a must. So mid-season, we've cleared out about 6 inches of the pepper leaves, put down a handful, half a handful of the organic granular. This will be a slow release, so it's going to break down slowly over July, beginning of August, and it'll be slowly feeding your plant. There's a lot of surface roots in the top 4 to 6 inches. When rain comes, when you water this in, those nutrients will get to your pepper plant. A nice, slow and steady way to feed them for the rest of the season. Compost, inch of compost I would just throw right on top of there. If I was doing both, it would be the organic granular, throw in some compost. That's sort of going to be my mulch. If I don't have mulch, I'm going to add in another layer at this point. And I just find that come July here in Maryland, the temperatures get higher. The plants lose water more quickly around the root system because of the sun. The mulch will make a huge difference in keeping the root system cool, keeping moisture in, letting the organic granular stay moist, letting the microbiology break it down, and it's just a nice way to take care of the pepper plants come mid-season. Now, I also will give them a drink of a water-soluble fertilizer. If you use the chemical types that are like a 24, 8, 12, that's way too much nitrogen. You're going to get that excess of leaf growth. You just don't want that. So I stick with my fish emulsion, which is a 5-1-1 NP and K. That'd be perfectly fine. Water it in, it's good to go. However, I do have a belief that a little more potassium and phosphorus helps. So I'm going to switch over to AgroThrive. I'll show you how I do that. And that fertilizer is organic, and it's a 3-2-2 NPK. A little bit less nitrogen than my fish emulsion, a little bit higher in the NP and K. The problem I have really with saying, you know, jack up the potassium and phosphorus, people always say, well, that will increase flowers, that will increase production, you'll get more fruit. I don't disagree with that. There's not a lot of flowers on here because it's a facing heaven. This is going to get taller, but all the flowers are starting. There's going to be hundreds of peppers on here without over worrying about really increasing the phosphorus. Coming over to this variety, you can see there's a lot more flowers starting. And as we work our way down, I'm going to show you this completely transitioned over. The pepper plants have different flowers and fruit at different times. I think this is a cherry red hot, lots of flowers. And you can see some of the fruit starting. So the other thing is your pepper plants are going to flower and fruit at different times. So I just don't want you to get caught in, oh, I can't give it any nitrogen. I have to go find higher potassium and phosphorus. You can do all that. But really, I'm throwing down some granular fertilizer, compost if I have it, and I'm watering it in with an organic fertilizer. That's really all you have to do, bottom line. And then let them go for the rest of the season. Unless the plants are looking a little bit weak and yellow, you don't really have to add in any more water-soluble fertilizer. You don't have to add in any more compost. You're good to go. You gave them the mid-season feeding. Just let your peppers do the thing. All right, let me clean these up and I'll show you how I use the AgroThrive. Here's a great example. This is actually my mild hot pepper row. However, I thought these were poblanos, which they are not. This is a shishito pepper. It's a beautiful pepper, nice and sweet. I love grilling them. But you can see all the shishitos on there. They're almost ready to be picked. Loads of flowers. Your pepper plants are just going to flower and produce at different rates. So if you have a pepper plant that is just kind of sitting, it doesn't have any flowers, that may not be because you didn't really increase the potassium and phosphorus. It just may not be ready. So shishito is loaded with peppers, loaded with flowers. This is going to keep producing, while some of these mid-range hot peppers are just getting going with flowering and fruiting. Don't over worry that you have to regulate the potassium and phosphorus so much to get more production out of your plants. Just slow and steady really is all that it needs. Pepper plants grow in nature basically with compost. Whatever's laying in the ground, it lives off of that, and they do really, really well on their own. We don't need to mess it up or overcomplicate it. I think it's really important to understand that as you get more experience, you can certainly work with tweaking the nitrogen, increasing the potassium and phosphorus, and see how your plants do. This is a jalapeno. You can see they're starting to form. The peppers are going to really form at different rates based on the variety. There's a little one. There's more flowering. I did find the poblano plant. That's a poblano. They're excellent grilled. Opened up a lot of space in here, a little bit more because the poblanos can get 5 feet tall. So I'm going with a bigger opening on the bottom. But they're all starting to form. So the idea would be that how do you kind of judge whether or not your plant should be flowering or fruiting based on the variety? So I just don't want you to over worry about it. Really, this video could have been summed up with organic granular, throw in some compost, put in mulch, open the bottom, give them a drink of any water-soluble fertilizer. I don't want you to feel like if you're a new gardener, you have to buy all these specialized fertilizers with different numbers on that. You're going to see that everywhere. You're going to see pepper fertilizer, tomato fertilizer, just the basics. And your peppers will do really well. Subscribe and follow, and you'll see how well all these pepper plants do over middle of July, early August. As I work my way down, these are Anaheim chili peppers. Look at those. That's almost full production right in there. Again, it really matters based on the variety, when your plant starts to flower, how quickly they form fruit. In this serrano, there's a little bit of leaf issue going on, but it's only on this plant. I'm going to be removing those leaves. I'm not really worried about that. I inspect the plant going all the way up. If I see more of that type of spotting, an issue up here, I may spray it with an antifungal, but that's really nothing to worry about. And you can see the serranos are forming right in there. And again, these were just water-soluble fertilizer when I put them in, beginning in May. About 2 weeks later, gave them another dose of basic fish emulsion. They had the granular already mixed in and compost mixed in when I planted the plants, and they're doing fine. We don't have to over TLC these plants and spend a lot of money on specialized fertilizers. The real trick, in my opinion, to doubling your production of your pepper plants is to do what I do. I have a lot of videos on it. Just plant 2 peppers in one space. Putting 2 pepper plants closely together does not really diminish production in any way. And even if it did, like just say maybe 1 pepper plant does 100% production. 2 pepper plants next to each other, the plants only do 90% production. Well, great, you lose 10% on one plant, but you're really getting 180% production out of that space because you have 2 plants in there. Plant 2 pepper plants right next to each other, you'll practically double your production. I've bottom pruned all the peppers, removing 4 to 6 inches. The leaves look fine in general, nice and green, no bug, disease issues that I'm worried about. Any organic granular, scatter it around the base of your plant. If these weren't containers, you just take a handful and just scatter it around. Just don't pile it up around the stem. You'll be fine with whatever you use. In some cases, I put down compost with the organic granular. In other cases, I just use compost. Follow me and you're going to see the plants aren't going to look much different. We're just responsible as gardeners as making sure that they have a nice, slow, steady amounts of N, P, and K and other nutrients, and compost does that. Granulars do that. This is what I'm using now along with fish emulsion. This is AgroThrive. It's a wonderful product. It's organic. Works well. I've been using it for a couple of years. Fish emulsion smells like rotted fish. In some cases it brings raccoons and cats to people's gardens, or they don't like the smell. If you don't want to use that, use the AgroThrive. So this comes in, I think I might have said this was a 322. Comes in the general purpose 332, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and they also have a fruit and flower, which is a 335, higher, you know, in the last number. The science is right. If you increase the potassium, the phosphorus, it really does help with fruiting. My question is always, well, how much are you giving them? In the case of these peppers, they're all fruiting and flowering at different times. When would I switch over to the other one? To keep it simple, pick one or the other. You don't have to spend money and buy both. So I recommend just getting the general purpose. Maybe down the line, if you want to experiment with changes in N, P, and K, go ahead and get the fruit and flower fertilizer, but definitely go with the general purpose. It's 2 ounces per gallon. These are actually sample sizes. If you check out my video description, I am affiliated with them. Use the link for a discount, and I believe that they have samples that you can get too, and just try out the product. So it's 2 ounces per gallon of water. This is 2 gallons, so it's just one of these containers in there, and this is all I'm going to do for the end of the season. A nice drink right at the base, and that's it. Each plant's going to get that much. You don't have to give the plant a whole gallon or anything like that. That's another mistake people make, is they overuse the water solubles. You're just soaking in around the base. This will sink into that top couple of inches where all the shallow roots are, and the plant is going to really enjoy it. It's going to do perfectly well with what we just gave them. If you want in August, you can give them some more water soluble. In fact, you can give them water soluble whenever you want. I would just say save money, only give it to them if they look like they're starting to yellow or they're struggling. But we've set these plants up. They look really good. I put down all the mulch, removed the leaves from the bottom, and I'm just going to let these go. They're going to get their water soluble all the way down the line. The peppers will produce over the rest of the season. I've been doing this for several years. Don't overspend, don't overthink it. Just keep the N, P, and K consistent with your pepper plants, and they're going to thrive, produce, and do really well for you. Thanks so much for watching. Please check out my seed shop at therustedgarden.com and enjoy the rest of your day.